Welcome. I'm Rita Steele, Chair of Grove Books. I should say the outgoing Chair of Grove Books. Welcome to those here in the room. Welcome to those of you watching us online, live or later now on Grove YouTube's channel. Where have we come from? That's the title of this session. We wanted to focus today on where we are and where we're going next. But you can't look to the future without knowing where you've come from. And it's great that we have Colin Buchanan, the founder of Grove Books, with us. He's moved. Where was it? He's over there, taking a back seat, Colin. Very, thank you for that. Anyway, there'll be a short interview with Colin on video in just a moment. Grove, you may or may not know, developed out of Grow, which is the Group for Renewal of Worship. That had been going for 10 years before the first Grove booklet was published. And Trevor Lloyd, founding member of that group, who is now a board member, is also with us. So great, thank you. Point of connection with the past. So our first booklet, and here we have our first booklet. There we are. Look at this, the Anglican Roman Catholic Agreement on the Eucharist. And it was a bestseller. That could have even been an agreed statement on the Eucharist between Anglicans and Catholics was quite a shock to the evangelical constituency of the day. So Colin asked the evangelical member of the commission, Julian Charlie, to write about it. The Archic statement was published on the last day of December 1971 for some reason, and Grove Booklet Ministry and Worship #1 was as well. The only commentary available at the time. So thus Grove from the very beginning was carving out its role for the next 50 years, which is one of rapid yet thoughtful reflection on key developments in the church and the world. And I said that the sales of that book were so good that they covered the cost of the whole series that Grove wanted to produce. So Grove had begun. I'll let Colin pick up the story. In 1973, Alec Mottier suggested a series on ethics. Oliver O'Donovan suggested one on the church's response to the abortion bill.
I said, what about writing a Grove booklet on ethics? And so he wrote one and then convened a group, and slowly through the 1970s, throughout a timed series, they produced about 5 or 6 titles in the first 5 or 6 years, and then they fell into a routine of 1 a quarter. Because of the various different things that enabled me to get going, we called it Booklets on Ministry and Worship. And in 1980, we split off ministry and it became the pastoral series. And in 1982, we split off a bit more and it became the spirituality series. And the evangelism one came after I had given up and the company had taken over, but I was company secretary. And that was an approach by the church army saying, could we do something jointly? And I think they helped fund things too, which did help.
That's always good. And then you got asked to be a bishop. You said you'd begun to change the relationship with Grove, but then things had to change again, really, didn't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was in an embarrassing situation because I was lagging in my debt, paying my debts. Not, I would like to claim because the business was non-viable, but because the publishing 12 booklets a year, which have now gone up to sort of 18 or 22 or something, meant that the stocks were rising all the time. There was more and more capital I hadn't got invested in the stocks. And there came this embarrassment that really we had to do something about it. Roy Williamson, who was my chair of council, and he ran an open meeting in 1983 for anybody around the country to come and have a conference about what should be done with Grove Books. I've been quite open about the fact that I was in financial difficulties. Roy was astonished at nearly 50 people coming, some of them traveling quite a long way, to insist that Grove booklets ought to continue. He thought he wanted to rescue his principle, but the customers wanted to rescue the product. And he then very brilliantly, really, went to his Darlington registrar, who was very sympathetic, and they set up the constitution for the company. It took some time to get it agreed, and it actually was finally agreed just before I was made a bishop. So close that when I was first asked by Hugh Montefiore to be his suffragan, I said, well, you can't, because I might be in bankruptcy court this summer.
But you weren't.
Yes, other people would say that, you know, it was a miracle. Some might simply say that I was a stupid risk taker.
Well, entrepreneurs have a particular reputation, perhaps, Colin, and that's certainly what you were. Can I ask you a final question? What are your hopes for Grove Future? You were very much involved in its past. You're still very passionate about them. What are your hopes for the future of Grove?
Well, I'm not sure. I certainly have nothing to do with forming policy nowadays. That's your business.
Absolutely.
I think I'm quite astonished that the product has lasted in the same format for so long and extended into other lines of business than those we started with. And so I'm still involved with worship booklets, and our group is actually celebrating its 60th anniversary, of which I was a founder member. This last year, and we've still got things coming on the worship front, number 262 or whatever it is, and and it goes on running, and presumably people all around the world still look up the website and say, have you got something on this or something on that, and it goes on selling, and I rejoice, but I've no way of forecasting what happens in the future. You tell me, what other lines are you going to open up?
Well, I'm going to leave that question to Alex at the end of the day, but thank you, Colin, for that. Like any self-respecting organisation, Grove have an ethos statement. Based on biblical principles, engages with best practice and offers practical application. We are evangelical and Anglican and seek to engage with, learn from, and speak to others. And of course, our strapline, not the last word, but often the first, coined by Michael Vasey in the 90s. And it served us well. In these days of widespread instant comment, we can no longer claim to be the first, but we continue to offer topical texts. A number came out, for example, in the first summer of COVID, reflecting on that and the church. And over our 50 years, the meaning of evangelical has changed somewhat. Evangelical is seen by many as close to fundamentalist, a harsh, unbending approach, a rigid understanding of the Bible. Now, you don't have to read many Grove books to realise we are doing something very different. And we now draw from and speak to a much wider constituency than when we started. And whenever I mention my connection with Grove, many people not only know what I'm talking about, but refer to a favourite book that dug them out of one hole or other, particularly when they're writing an essay. But as I passed on my apologies for a meeting that I couldn't make because I'm here, the reaction was, Grove books are worth celebrating. And that was from a layperson in my diocese, from a parish that would call itself liberal Catholic. So we are far broader in many ways. We're part of the broad evangelical movement. And as someone who's been in ordained ministry for 4/5 of the lifespan of Grove, couldn't read, I've been part of the process of evangelicals escaping from what Colin Buchanan, in the brief history he's written, and copies are available, describes as a ghetto. And I believe Grove Books has played a small but not insignificant part in getting evangelicals out of that ghetto, in re-establishing an academic and pastoral credibility for evangelicalism, getting a reasoned, biblically informed voice more widely heard. The authors in our list, evangelical luminaries such as I.H. Marshall, respected academics, Richard Bauckham, John Goldingay, Leslie Francis, elder statesmen of pioneer ministry, Michael Moyner, more bishops than you could shake a suitably shaped stick at, leaders of influence within evangelicalism, and critical friends who wouldn't carry that label. They're all involved with Grove Books. Even a certain Justin Welby has written for us. And what started as a rather focused, you might even say niche interest, has branched out. When the renewal movement was something people were wanting to reflect on, we started a series for that. When renewal had become mainstream and leadership studies were the latest thing in the church, we replaced the renewal series with leadership. Shortly before that, a highly significant partnership was developed with the Association of Anglican Directors of Education. They saw what Grove could offer. We've recently started the Doctrine series. We continue with youth and biblical and pastoral and spirituality, and now mission and evangelism, and of course, worship and ethics. We're now working with the Anglican Communion on a new series on discipleship. Other collaborations have been with Church Army, CPS, CMS, LICC, Bible Society, a roll call, I think, of the broader evangelical end of the church, within and beyond Anglicanism. You may be surprised to know, because we're such a slick operation, we only have one member of staff who even approaches full-time. Suzanne, many thanks to you, Suzanne. We have a few part-time people as well with our editors. Grove is unlike any other publishing company because its heart is in our editorial groups, and many of you are here or online part of that. All volunteers, and all with a passion for their subjects and a knowledge of their subjects. They've made Grove what it is and will help it become what it needs to be for the future. We hope today will give you a flavour of where we are, a taste of where we're going, and that we, along with you, will be challenged by our amazing variety of speakers. Thank you.